Hello, everyone, and welcome to my review of Sensory Overload Lucha Libre's Welcome to Luchaville. This is the first of maybe many reviews of varying wrestling shows that I really enjoy. This one in particular is something I really force my friends and people I think they can handle it upon, just because it is nothing like traditional wrestling I was about to say in a traditional sense, but that would just be merely redundant. I mean, there's a lot of good action, but the overarching show has its own like set story, set in this fictional town of Luchaville that is just completely off the wall, and features a lot of real crude humor, infinite amounts of cursing. I wouldn't even try to play an over/under game of the amount of curse words in there. But that being said, I find it a lot of fun, even though it doesn't age well in terms of some of the things of humor and some of the chunks of language that they use. But barring that, like, I find it to be really fun. That being said, anytime you watch it, you need to make sure you properly prepare for it. So give me one moment. All right, let's begin.
The show begins with the lead commentator named McDermott, who, as you can see here, is kind of some sort of Scotch-Irish stereotype. I'm not sure what's going on with the hat, but, whatever. Anyway, McDermott here is singing the rules of the show and kind of giving everybody the rundown a cappella. The crowd is kind of into it for the most part, but mostly drunk.
The first official match of the evening features Luchaville R&D, consisting of Dr. Kieblowitz, Mr. Strangles, and Ultimo Unicorn, versus the makeshift team of Patient Zero, Orange Cassidy, before he's recently shot to fame, and Icarus. The match really doesn't begin forever, due to Larry Zbyszko-esque stalling from Icarus, who drops an infinite amount of F-bombs alone. I mean, again, who knows how many? I'm not going to count. He picks a fight with Dr. Kieblowitz, who is a German mad scientist stereotype, who brings out his creation, Ultimo Unicorn, and his sidekick, Dr. Strangles, the Drunken Monkey. On the other side, we have Icarus, Orange Cassidy again, who's now starting to rise to fame with AEW, and Patient Zero, the world's oldest zombie, who comes out to the ring using a walker. The match finally starts, get some hot little action between the folks, and then we get this little gem.
It seems weird that I can tell Icarus's religion without even asking, but those are some very revealing tights. Shades of Merrick Brave there.
Shout out to Davenport, Iowa owns Merrick Brave. For those of you who aren't familiar with my work, I am currently based out of the Quad Cities, where Merrick Brave, along with Seth Rollins, has a wrestling school, the Black and Brave Wrestling Academy. So that's my cheap plug for the Wrestling Academy. Meanwhile, again, some hot action, back and forth action. We get some little comedy spots with Orange Cassidy and Mr. Strangles. And eventually, this happens.
Boy is high on cocaine.
If not now, then several hours ago. Never tell with Orange Cassidy. Like I said, we do not drug test our
Is it nap
competitors.
time, McDermott? I do believe they're both sleeping.
What in the... Oh. Oh, there we go. There the ever-present balloon filled.
I wasn't told there'd be party favors, McDermott.
It's really a good thing that Luchaville does not have any sort of drug policy. Otherwise, this match would be shut down in the opening moments of the first match. Anyway, eventually, Icarus does Shattered Dreams into an X Factor, and then just flips the fuck out because they said it couldn't be done, and he did it. Unfortunately, while he's running around, it allows Orange Cassidy to be beaten up by Ultimo Unicorn, which finishes the match, leaving the team of Luchaville R&D victorious. Second match of the night is Aaron Epic versus The Shard. This match gets introduced by Rich and Heartless, the president of Luchaville. He notes that he does not want Aaron Epic's type in Luchaville. Aaron Epic kind of running a gimmick that he's a former prisoner, he's a felon. So he's kind of an undesirable, at least in the eyes of Rich and Heartless. So Heartless brings out The Shard, his little paid assassin, to take out Epic. The Shard has had some experience in Chikara, and some other unmasked experience that I won't break kayfabe for. But if you've paid attention to WWE or AEW as of late, you have seen him in action. Real good match. The commentary starts getting distracting because one of the puppets have been replaced by Mr. Oculus Fong, who is very much an Asian stereotype, though leads to one great moment where Epic chops the ring post, missing the Shard, and just for whatever reason, like, I find this hilarious, but Fong responds, "Oh, ring post kick his ass," which I just, given his tone of voice and the accent, I find hilarious. The match eventually ends, much to my chagrin, with Aaron Epic's victory over the Shard, featuring Epic's fastball punch. Next, we have a little spoken word, well, I would call it backstage, but front stage, it's in front of the curtain, on-stage skit called Speed Dating with Great Sexpectations. Great Sexpectations is a tag team headed by Yoshi, who is another Asian stereotype. Yoshi takes two women from the crowd. Sweet zombie Jesus. All right, give me one more moment, please. Okay. There is not enough Coke in the world to wash this whole skit from my mind. So we have speed dating, which Yoshi asks the two women varying questions, usually telling them they're wrong, with, who pays for the date? What date do you do anal in? Etc. Eventually, they just cut out. Everybody wins. We go into the date portion, which everyone gets to eat a bag lunch, which then turns into sexy time. So just as everyone's starting to strip, by everyone I mean just the wrestlers, of course, the ladies keep their clothes on. They are interrupted by Steven the Turtle Weiner, who's a Northeastern wrestler, whose gimmick is that he kind of looks like a turtle, has a turtle backpack. but he's a sweet and innocent dude and wants to play up the fact that, love can't be rushed. And sex isn't something that should be done on the first date or on a stage in front of a crowd of people at a wrestling show. Of course, this is a total, breach in wrestling etiquette. And so Great Expectations has to kick the shit out of it. Wrestling. We now get a return to action, starting with Principal of Luchaville promo. He's interrupted by a guy named Jimmy Reese, who I have no clue who he is, but I can tell you this, despite being portrayed as a good guy in this show, he is an utter douchebag. Comes out with Jaeger, which is not the part that makes him a douchebag, because I really want to like Jaeger, but just can't pull the trigger on that. But he's just filthy for the sake of being filthy, and despite it being 2013, really seems to think gay is a real competent insult, which he throws it around quite a bit, and not even in it's never quite humorous in this day and age, but you can be at least clever about it if you're going to say something like that, make a quick one-liner, and he doesn't, and he's just crude. But I guess because he's drunk, that makes him the good guy, and everyone loves him. So there's that. Anyway, this eventually segues into a match between Len Oddity, who's Jimmy Reese's boy, evidently, and Pinky Sanchez, the former Pink Ant, who will be given the reward of graduating finally from Luchaville High School if he can defeat Len Oddity and just stick it to Jimmy Reese. This match is no DQ, street fight rules, so there's a lot of this average plunder in it. Just real interesting use of weaponry. Also, commentary can't get over Pinky Sanchez's attire, which is slightly different than usual, as in some of the traditional Chikara guys that have shown up here. He's dressed in way too short jib shorts, Crocs, and a bandana. Take it what you will. Fits the aesthetic of the show in general, so we just go with it. But we go through the regular sort of garbage wrestling spots with all sorts of weaponry that's hiding in the ring and whatnot. And then...
Oh my God!
Oh, not the first.
Excuse me for a moment. I don't know why I do this, because I keep watching it and nothing wipes the image out of my mind, no matter how much I do. But also realize I might have a problem. Anyway, despite this, it's a very entertaining back and forth match with Pinky getting busted open, then having a dildo shoved in his mouth, but eventually ends with a Arabian facebuster done to Sanchez, giving Len Oddity the win, and Pinky Sanchez is still stuck in Luchaville High School because of it. Following this match, we get another skit on stage called Roving Eye to Eye with Oculus Fong, and Fong is actually one of the puppets that are doing commentary throughout the show. His guests tonight are Fire Ant and Hollow Wicked. This sets up the main event, which Hollow Wicked will take on Fire Ant for the last Twinkies in the world. After some, we'll call it banter, if you can really call that because traditionally Fire Ant and Hollow Wicked are quasi-mute. They don't speak English. But ultimately, Hollow Wicked gets in a confrontation with Fong and ends up assaulting him after we get a clever your mom joke featuring a pumpkin pie. So that sets up the match later, and it will be the last we see of Fong, who wants everyone to know that he hates McDermott. Up next is one of my favorite matches of the night, if not actually my favorite match of the night, just because of the action involved, and there's not as many little like stop and joke spots, even though there's plenty of humor in it. But it's a four-way tag team match between Great Expectations, who we saw earlier in Speed Dating, Infestation Nation, consisting of Rumblebee and Manbug, the Urban Legends, who is Ned Spark and Dime O'Baggins, and the Saints of Elsewhere, who are Peter Rottentail and Aloysius Darling IV. The latter two are toys that Steven Weiner brings to the ring. Weiner was supposedly to take part in this match and was previously injured by Great Expectations. And due to the power of magic and belief, the dolls, Peter Rottentail and Aloysius Darling IV, aka Dolly, come alive and get to wrestle for Weiner. I don't know what all I can say about this match. That it's just a total glorious train wreck. For some odd reason, the referee is shirtless as well, but it's okay because he's wearing a striped mask. It's just crazy. Here's a couple clips from the show.
Oh no! Oh, the Beast got boxing gloves! The Beast got boxing gloves! My God! Oh, your dolly's just working it, Steven! Yeah! Yeah! Oh, wait a minute! The referee! The referee!
What the hell is he doing?
No! 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 Oh, my God! It's the referee! No! No! Oh, you!
Yeah, that's what I call wrestling. Eventually, the Saints of Elsewhere win with the bunny hop double stomp after pretty much everyone hits their finisher. I mean, like everyone. So like all 8 guys do. I guess it's technically their finishers. I've never seen most of those guys before, so I'm just going to assume it is because that's what you do in wrestling when there's that many men. Everyone gets their shit in and does their finisher. But the important thing is the Saints did their finisher last, so they get to win. Magic. Up next is kind of our come down match with Gran Akuma versus JT Dunn. Akuma is an old Chikara mainstay, one of the original members of Team Fist. His opponent is JT Dunn, who's traveled the country, teamed with Chris Hero, also known for his rolling elbows and other elbow strikes. And they have, pretty solid match. Dunn's hitting some dives, lots of back and forth striking action. Akuma is also an accomplished striker, studied the martial arts, and then of course Dunn's got his elbows going. Dunn eventually wins after reversing a tombstone into what can be best described as a head scissors driver. Pretty nifty move, and I've not seen that before or since, really. So good on him. It's kind of a good palate cleanser match after the last clusterfuck. Just good, hard-hitting action. We come back to Rich and Heartless strutting his way to the ring. He is almost doing full Mr. McMahon mode here, doing the spasming his way into the ring. His opponent, getting introduced by the Jimmy Reese guy, is the Mac. And his gimmick is that he's really drunk too. So here's someone else whose gimmick revolves around some sort of inebriation. So he comes out drinking Jaeger, has to be directed to the ring because he's drunk. Heartless, obviously a man's man, demands to go shot for shot with the Mac, which leads to hilarity, of course, as we have two drunk guys doing stupid comedy spots because they're drunk and somehow can wrestle. Anyway, after all sorts of insanity, the Mac wins with a Rydeen bomb, which I will always appreciate a good Rydeen bomb, otherwise known as the Sky High for the layperson. But the Mac wins, saving the day for all drunks everywhere. It's time for our main event. Hallowicked versus Fire Ant for the last Twinkies in the world. Remember, this is 2013 when, Hostess was going under, and we thought we were going to lose Twinkies. Oh, those were dark days indeed. But anyway, both Hallowicked and Fire Ant are Chikara mainstays, both wrestling with the company today as well, though Fire Ant's branched out a bit with some of his other endeavors. For those of you who know their work, this is just a standard match between the two of them. For those who don't know their work and aren't familiar with them, despite the kooky gimmicks, these guys can go. A lot of fast-paced action with stiff strikes thrown in, and just a lot of, I wouldn't go full flippy, but a lot of fast-paced chain wrestling action that is kind of a staple of a lot of Mike Quackenbush's students. So we have a good back and forth match, which Hallowicked eventually wins with the Yakuza kick. So, as noted before, he has a huge sweet tooth, and he is excited to have the last Twinkies in the world. But of course, we can't have anything nice here in Luchaville, and Steven Weiner shows up, and notes that Hallowicked may not actually be addicted to sugar, but adrenaline. Whatever. We all have our vices. So Weiner goes on his little speech and then proceeds to, go on about the adrenaline. And notes that one of the best ways to, do this is to dance. So we proceed to have a dance party that is, a dance party. It is what it is, but, I've been to a wrestling dance party, and nothing compares to this.
Thank you so much for coming out to the very first annual Thank you, I told you it's going to be a lot of fun. Hey, I'll see you. The finger first. Woo!
Hi, Merrick. Anyway, that was Sensory Overload Lucha Libre's Welcome to Luchaville. It's a lot of fun. If you can get your hands on a copy of it, you can get it pretty cheap at Smart Mark Video. So cheap plug for them. Hopefully they can get wind of this and, kick back a DVD or a download my way. That's not going to happen. They're probably going to send me a cease and desist for using their footage. But it's a lot of fun. A lot of the humor doesn't always carry over now. 6 years is a long time in the world of humor and jokes and just what's socially acceptable. So a lot of the stereotyping and the use of gay as an insult really doesn't work anymore. So if you're willing to turn a blind eye to it, or you just like some racier content in your pro wrestling, I do recommend giving this show a look at. Again, it's just totally different than a lot of the wrestling that was out there, for better or for worse. But again, it actually has pretty solid action for a lot of unknowns. And if you like Chikara, that's also a plus, because a lot of the guys that work Chikara are wrestling for Sensory Overload Lucha Libre. So again, like, solid, check it out. I do force it on my friends because they're all sick puppies as well and enjoy that sort of thing. Um, but it's definitely not for your wrestling purist. Anyway, I think that's enough of me yammering on. So it's time for my cheap plugs. I'd like to thank my Patreon backers, Maverick45 and Danielle Clark. Shout out to you guys. If you would also like to join my Patreon and get all sorts of goodies like early access to my videos, amongst other things that I might be up to, feel free to check it out. I'll have the links to that in various social media down at the bottom. For as little as $1, you get access to everything. And of course, if you happen to be rich, more money equals more goodies. So that's always appreciated. Just because, let's face it, I'm recording this on a phone, and if you get me good stuff, maybe I can get real recording equipment and real editing equipment, and things won't look so terrible. Or at least not quite as terrible because I have good equipment. I don't know. I mean, look at me. It's not going to get any better than this.